lifetime, which may be the only decision that you take once in a lifetime, which is the decision of starting your own business. So at Franchise India, we work with aspiring entrepreneurs like yourself or business buyers like yourself to help them in the most important decision of their life. And this session is about how to successfully start your own business and sustain your business. So I'll give you a background, friends, about Franchise India. I'll talk a bit on franchise industry. And finally, I'll talk about what it takes to invest in a business. And all the learnings which have come is a result of the 2.5 odd decades that we have spent in the industry, working with millions of business buyers, thousands of businesses across India and overseas markets, which brings a lot of validated learning to our community of investors. And I also request all of you, if there are any questions that you want to ask, please use the Q&A box. I'll be happy to answer these questions and try to make it as interactive as possible. So I'll start with our company, Franchise India, and I'll give you a little background. We are a company which started about 26 years back, and our platform of Franchise India has been helping and working with prospective franchisees to be able to research franchise opportunities, evaluate business options, and most importantly, I would say, learn from the industry experts. So over the last 2.5 decades of our journey, millions of business buyers have trusted the platform of Franchise India to research franchise opportunities from a unit franchisee to a multi-unit to a master unit of many international brands, and from a dealership to distributionship. In fact, we had the privilege of working with investors and giving them the guided solution where we combined our industry knowledge and experience that we had gathered, and we handheld them through the entire process of buying a business. So, the first question which comes to everybody's mind when we look at or the idea of starting a business comes to our mind, there are only 3 ways one could in fact do that. One is you have your own startup, you start something by yourself. And that is what our ecosystem of startup today is in India all about. Second is you take something which is already being run by somebody and you take over a running business and start running that, which is primarily a secondary sales of business. In our vocabulary, we call that a business resale. Right? And third is you run a business which is tried and tested. And this is what we call franchising, where you take a name, you take the systems, you take the processes, and you run that business. So while franchising creates a lot of intelligent synergies because it brings the combined strength of the brand and the franchisee, and they collaborate with each other to make the business sustainable. And it also cuts across every industry. I meet a lot of investors who, in fact, ask about which is the best industry or the category perhaps to invest in. But I will like to say, and I'm sure you all would agree, that we have all seen successful franchise companies across all sectors. So every business, I would say, is good or great. But you as a investor or a business buyer or entrepreneur must find out your own fitment of what is right for you. And this, again, is based on a very inclusive and integrated approach, which includes your interest area, your strategic strength, your experience, the finances which are involved, the time that is involved in the business, and most importantly, I would say the risk appetite that you have in the business. So while you do that, even the companies, the franchisors, they also have their own qualification criteria, because the success and the failure of a business will also directly impact the business, the brand, the goodwill of the company. So there are a few requirements that are often taken into consideration by the companies, which includes the time and availability, the immediate cash in hand, the management experience, sometimes even the industry experience. But lastly, any franchise company would not necessarily need their partner to come with that industry experience, but sometimes it is an added advantage if you have experience on that industry. So let us understand how big the opportunity of franchising is, right? So anytime you want to enter an industry or a specific, I would say, field, the first thought that comes to our mind is how big that opportunity is. And if it is big enough, is it going to be relevant? Is it going to sustain in the times to come? So I'll talk about, a couple of things which are important to understand how big the impact of franchising as an industry is. So if you look at India, and we are sitting on the best opportune time where the entire world or the globe, I would say, is looking upon India, and maybe in terms of the next big business opportunity. And also our current fundamentals of economy, they signal the market has an enormous potential. And India is today the powerhouse when it comes to powerhouse in the globalized world. So franchising itself is a huge market, rather a very, very big impact market. So when I say it's a very big impact market, because everything that we are consuming every day in our life, all that, be it product or a service that is being consumed by us, all that is coming through a franchise business, right? And franchising, like I said, cuts across every industry. Overall, the global size of franchise industry is very large. It is almost $4.8 trillion, which is bigger than the GDP of India. So if franchising was a country, it would be bigger than the GDP of our country, India. And if you look at, and if you have been following franchising, the last 25 odd years, ever since we have been in the industry, and rather we pioneered franchising in India, we have seen there has been a phenomenal growth in franchising. And the future of franchising looks even more bright than what it was 25 years back. And as I speak, there would be a growth of 10x in the next 10 years. The industry, while there are many other industries which you would see they're growing at a single digit, even in the current times, franchising always has been an industry which has, from the very beginning, the growth has been on a double digit. So the current growth is also on a 30% year on year. And India today is the second largest franchise market in the world after America. And a lot of this growth, I will tell you, is contributed by first-time business buyers. 25 years back, the first-time business buyer community in India was not very big. Out of 100 businesses or business buyers who would come to us, only 20 out of these business buyers were people who were actually first-time business buyers who had no experience of running a business, while 80% used to be seasoned entrepreneurs, firms, families who were either running businesses or some form of franchising. Now, this industry contributed, by the first time business buyer has become very, very big. Today, out of 100 businesses which are bought in India, 60% of these businesses are taken by the first time business buyer community, which are largely professionals in the age group of anything between 28 to 45 years, largely. Right? And the industry is huge. Today, it accounts almost about 4% to our GDP. And as the entire economy is becoming more and more organized, this share of GDP in terms of both value and also percentage is only going to become bigger. The second trigger in franchising is the consumption story of India is extremely interesting and very, very big. And this is what has made our economy resilient, over the years, because we have a huge, massive consumption engine. In fact, 70% of our GDP in India is driven by domestic consumption. And it is the consumption which is driving our economy, right? Compared to even countries like China, where the domestic consumption is 53%. India, by far, amongst the top 5 economies in the world, has the highest domestic consumption and driven economy. So the consumption cycles are also changing. We are still, if we compare with countries like maybe even US, we are still lower in terms of per capita consumptions in many categories. But the last 10 to 15 years, this has changed a lot. Most consumer categories today have become 3.5 times larger than what they were maybe even 30 years back. And this is only going to become bigger and bigger. The third thing which I also want to talk about is our entire consumption today is becoming formalized, which means that today whatever we are consuming is coming from a formalized or a branded environment. So the brand consciousness, the demand for a product or a service which is branded is increasing. So what we witnessed 20 years back in the product industry, this is what today we are actually experiencing on the service side of the industry. So all products became modernized 20 years back. Today, all services that we are consuming, from direct to home services like healthcare, even laundry services, any form of services that you consume, your any kind of help that you are consuming even at home, your domestic help, driver services, healthcare services, all that is becoming more and more branded. And lastly, which is very, very interesting, is India has a very big issue. While the top 10 cities in India, these are the top cities which also have the highest consumption and highest GDP. But there is a big dearth of job opportunities when it comes to tier two and tier three cities, where maybe even an opportunity for a lakh or a 2 lakh would not exist in cities beyond Delhi, beyond Bombay, beyond Bangalore. So when you look at the startup ecosystem also in India, 49% of our startups in the country, they come from tier two and three, which itself gives a huge validation of the spirit and the potential of entrepreneurship that sits in a country like us. So guys, I wanted to set that perspective on, franchising. I'm sure you have been following franchising. If not all, I'm sure some of you have been following some businesses at large. So I'll talk about, what it takes to become or, select a brand. And this is the most critical decision at any given point in time. I'm sure if you're somebody who's already exploring opportunities, you might have come across a lot of businesses, you might have met some companies, you might have reached out to some of these companies, and you might find it very, very overwhelming because there's a lot of information that comes to you. Even the website of Franchise India, it is www.franchiseindia.com. You can go out and check. There are about 16,000 companies which are listed on the website of Franchise India. Every day, there is a new brand that we launch on a webinar through our platform. So which means that the information in the market on the net is immense. But what is difficult is, how do we select what and how do we even figure out what is right for us? So while we have been working with for a long period of time, and I personally believe that as a franchise consultant, we also carry huge responsibility in helping a potential business buyer make a right decision and informed decision of buying a business. So how do we bring in absolute accuracy? So there is a science behind it, which we have actually worked a lot in the last 26 odd years. And this is our learning, which we pass on when we advise people on buying a business. So I'll take you through a structure, and these are 5 assessment tools that we advise every business buyer to consider before they buy a business, irrespective, whatever your timeline to invest in the business is, whether you're investing in a month's time or a 2 months time or a 6 months time, irrespective of the timeline, these are assessment tools that everyone. So even if you have started speaking to companies, I would still recommend that don't bypass these assessment tools. And these assessment tools are tried and tested. This has been done over a period of time with more than 2 lakh business buyers who in fact took our services. We gave them guided solutions. So never bypass these, even if you're trying to do that by yourself. But before I go there, friends, I'll also request you if, you can also share a bit about yourself. I see a lot of our friends who have joined in today. And if I can request you to share a bit about your profile, your background, that also gives me understanding about the cities that you come from, the industry that you're interested in, and would help me in giving some kind of references from that specific city or an industry. So I'll start with asking these questions, and I'll request all of you if you can use the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen to answer these questions. My first question to all of you is the timeline. I personally believe you all would agree any important decision that we make in our life, we always have a timeline in our mind and we start working backwards on that timeline. And same is true even for this decision of buying a business. Right. So I would like to request you, if you can write in the Q&A box, what is the timeline for you? How long do you want to take to start the business? If there's a specific month in mind or a timeline in mind, please go ahead and write that. Second, I would like to know what is your area of interest, which means what specific industry are you actually looking to invest in, which could be maybe food. You can even go very detailed and say, I have interest in food, but maybe I want to do a fine dining restaurant or a QSR or a kiosk. If you say retail, you can be as specific as a footwear brand or a jewelry brand. Go as specific as that. And my third question is your city of interest. Where do you want to open? And lastly, if you can also let me know if you already have are you a first time business buyer or you are already running a business? So guys, please go ahead. I see a lot of you out there. It is important that as a business owner, when we move out in the market, we need to ask the right questions, and more we learn about you, we would be better prepared to work and assist you. And when I say that, one thing which I also want to, in fact, tell all of you, Franchise India has offices in 97 cities in India and 9 international markets. And some of you might have joined from India and also international markets, because we also have a very big investor base outside India who are looking for opportunities from a lot of international markets across the globe. So I would like to have your comments. So welcome, Sri Lakshmi ji. You want to start a business in a month's time in the city of Mangalore. Wonderful. Thank you for writing in. Atul Mishra ji, thank you and very good morning. You're looking for starting a business in 6 months' time. Your area of interest is on the food and the agri related business. And there's a lot of technology which is coming into agriculture industry also, Atalji. We'll be happy to discuss with you on that. And the city of your interest is Lucknow. Wonderful. Yashna ji, very good afternoon to you. For the month of June, great. You also decided the month. So it is after the month of June you want to start a business. Something in the food in Delhi and Noida. Wonderful. Yashna ji, before I take on to the next investor of ours, I like to also tell friends, all of you in India, we do the largest franchise exhibition in the world. In fact, our next largest show, while there's a show which is happening in Hyderabad in March and subsequently also other cities in the next months. Franchise India organizes some of the largest franchise exhibitions in the world, and a larger mother show, which is the largest of all exhibitions, is coming up on 18th and 19th of May. It is taking place in India International Convention Center, which is a new convention center in Dwarka, which is the largest in the country. And all these years, we have been conducting this show at Pragati Maidan. But this year, we have moved the show to the largest convention hall in the country, which would have nearly 45,000 business buyers from across the country coming and visiting this show. More than 100 companies, global international brands also come and visit the show and rather participate in the show. And 600 companies overall represent their interest to business buyers. So I'll be more than happy to even share the information on the show. Everybody who's thinking of starting a business must definitely visit the show. Wonderful, Atulji. Thank you, Ms. Balachandra ji. Looking for business in the construction product industry. You want to start immediately. Looking for city in Bombay. You're already trading in construction, and construction building solutions, Balachandra ji, is becoming a very, very big industry. We work with some of the leading brands in the industry. We'll be happy to discuss with you. In fact, I'll check if JSW would be available for a opportunity in Bombay, because we worked very closely, and JSW developed a complete home solution brand, and they were actually, we did their entire expansion for Bombay and Pune, the entire Western markets, and some parts of South where they were focused to get in. So wonderful. Surinder ji, welcome. You're looking for starting a business by November, and the city of your interest is Lucknow, something in the apparel and the food segment. Wonderful. I think I have some amazing responses. And like I said, franchising cuts across every industry. And to me, while the biggest interest every time I speak to our community of investors, the biggest interest always comes from F&B. And typically, the investment range in a segment like F&B can start as small as 10 to 15 odd lakhs for a small kiosk or a takeaway outlet. But the investment starts becoming bigger as you start looking at formats which are like fine dining restaurants, quick service restaurants, a casual dine restaurants, or in fact, or a bar or a lounge. Retail business, especially on the apparel side, again, there are a lot of subcategories which can start on an average at about 30 odd lakhs. Any business model or a franchise business in retail industry, largely your investment is in the inventory, right? So there is a component, for example, if the investment is close to say 30 or 35 in a fashion apparel brand, out of that 35 lakhs, 50% of your investment actually goes in the inventory, which you give to the company as a security deposit. And the company supplies you the product against that deposit that you make with them. And the second part of investment primarily would go into your CapEx, which is doing your interiors, your civil work, and then part of franchise fees. On an average, the retail companies, because a bigger component goes in the stock, the companies don't charge a huge franchise fees. Their franchise fees normally would not be beyond 5 lakhs. So anything between 3 to 5 lakhs is the average franchise fees which any retail company charges. The exception is only jewelry brands, because the jewelry brand capex goes upwards of 2 crores. They charge on an average anything between 5 to 10 lakh as a franchise fee. So I'll be happy to discuss more if you have any specific investment bracket in mind, and we can discuss one-to-one. And like I said, we have teams across 97 cities, all the cities which I see also in the chat, in the Q&A box. We have our local regional teams who can perhaps brainstorm with you the opportunities. So friends, I'll come very quickly on, what it takes to select a brand. And this is a very holistic approach that we have taken, and we have come out with 5 assessment tools which every business buyer must undertake before getting into a business buying exercise. And these 5 assessment tools is first and foremost your own self-assessment, right? That I feel is the most aspiring tool for any aspiring entrepreneur who wants to start a business. You need to evaluate traits like your business skills, your experience, your knowledge, the investment appetite, your ability to meet the challenges the business would give. That's very, very important. Second is the industry assessment, because you need to understand the industries, the addressable market in these industries, how that addressable market is relevant for the market that you want to open, which means your state or the city where you want to open. So your self-assessment is first tool, industry assessment. Third is the market assessment, the market where you want to open the business. Fourth is to do a competitive assessment, right? When you select a brand, for example, if you're looking at something in the retail fashion apparel, so maybe you look for an opportunity, but you look at 4 or 5 opportunities, which is immediate competition, which could be regional, national level, or maybe a city-based brand, and understand some important dynamics of the competition, which I'll also talk about. And lastly, do a brand assessment. Like these 5 tools, I say it lays the foundation that can assist you to evaluate your level of fitment. I'm not saying one brand or one industry is better than the other, but if you do all these 5 assessment tools, it helps you evaluate your level of fitment for a specific industry, for a specific brand in your market. So starting with self-assessment, I would say you need to align 2 things here. One is your life goals. The other is your business goals. So this is a self-discovery phase. And there are 3 important elements that you must consider when you make your financial goal plan. And I call that the TRR rule. The T stands for the timeline of your investment, how long you want to take to achieve your financial goal. Very, very important. It could be long-term, mid-term, short-term. That is very critical before you decide what business you want to invest in. The second the R stands for risk, which means the risk appetite that you have to invest in the business. And the third R stands for the return that you expect from the investment that you're doing. Now, let me explain that through an example of an asset class. Today, any investment that we do, the only fundamental goal of any investment could be safety. All my money which I want to invest, I want that complete security and safety of that money. The second goal is income, right? You want to generate some moderate income from your investments. And third is a growth, which is your fundamental goal, which means you want to invest the money, but you want to spread out your money and have substantial growth from the investment that you put in. Now, when you have these 3 fundamental goals, and so is franchising, it also means when you're looking at safety as a business goal or a financial goal, you're also telling yourself you're looking at an opportunity to invest, which is low risk, right? When it has low risk, it will also have proportionately low return. Income-based businesses would have moderate risk and moderate return, and growth-centric businesses would have a high risk and high return. And the same is true also in the world of franchising. So a lot of businesses in franchising, when it comes on a model where the franchisee does not operate and only invest, and companies sometimes de-risk you. They say, you make the investment, I take care of the operations, but because they provide you safety, they also give you low returns, right? So businesses are also like that. So that is one thing you need to understand. And when you select businesses, you need to put all these 3 filters of selection. The third element is your time involvement. When you look at franchising, and the fundamental reason why franchising actually became very, very popular in America, followed by other countries, was because the companies wanted to bring in efficiency at the unit level, not Not that companies like McDonald's or Subways didn't have money to expand, but the only reason was they wanted to bring a lot of efficiency at the unit level. And this is what a franchise partner actually brings in. Even in India, companies like Tata's, Reliance, Adani's, all have retail businesses which they franchise. And this is one big reason why these companies franchise, because time involvement brings in almost about 18 to 20% higher efficiencies in the business, which sometimes companies not able to do that because of high corporate cost. Second is your industry assessment. How do you understand the assessment of the industry? The first and foremost, what you need to look at is how big is the total addressable market in that industry. Right? So is it overcrowded? Is it an industry which is already commoditized? Can you as a franchise partner have the first mover advantage if you select that in your market? So you need to look at how big is that addressable market? Who are the current players who are already servicing that? Is there a gap, right? So there could also be issue with a gap in the market, right? We call that supply and demand gap. Now, this gap could be in the product. This gap could be in the service. This gap could be maybe the solution which the customer or the client would want to have, and the current players are not able to give in. So figure that out, and then select your industry. Third is you need to select your market, where you need to understand a couple of things. And the two most important elements is at what stage is the business at? Depending on the stage of the businesses, companies choose a very different go-to-market strategy. And these businesses typically can be split into three stages, I would say. One is a startup stage. Company would have a different perspective when it is at a stage when it is just starting to enter a market. Second is your growth stage, where they might have penetrated certain markets or a city or a state, and they want to go further. And third is a scale stage, where the company has already reached a certain economies of scale and they want to take a very big market share in the industry. So depending at what stage the business is, the companies also adopt a very different approach and franchise models or partnership models. So you need to understand these three stages. The other important things when we talk about market assessment is to also understand what the regulations are in the market, right? So for businesses with respect to bars, for example, you need to understand what is the liquor license policy in your state. For a pharmacy store, you need to understand what is the drug license policy in your state. Similarly, for electric vehicle, all industries have regulations which are very, very specific for the state, because regulations are both a center and a state subject, but you need to know what your state guidelines say on that industry. And the third part is to understand where you should open, which is the location is of very, very prime importance. The thumb rule which is followed by us when we advise on location is look at the top, say, 3 or 4 competitions in your market. And for example, you are a fashion brand and these are 5 competition that you think is very close to what you want to do. Understand which spots in that market are these competitors operating out of, maybe a high street or a mall. And out of these, say, 5 locations where your competition is operating out of, which are the top 2 or 3 locations where they do the highest revenue or the highest throughput. These locations with obviously and do very well for you, and your success probability will increase. Third is your competitive assessment, which means the advantage that you have over the competition in the market. So what you need to look at it is things like brand penetration, right? You need to look at how the brand has been performing in the market. Look at what is the go-to market for a brand. Understand the offering overall, and is that very different to your brand or the competition which is present. Now, the differentiation could be in service, like I said, it could be difference in the product. There could be an innovation which perhaps the competition would have. And there could be also a very strong indicator where companies have a very, very strong barrier to entry, which makes very difficult for a competition to enter the market, which can be regulations, it can be patents, licensing requirements, technology. So understand these parameters when you do a competitive assessment. Even if you have selected a brand, look at 3 or 4 peers who are very closer to that particular brand, and understand little bit about these companies and what benefit you have choosing one over the other. And finally comes the assessment of the company. How do you choose the brand that you want to go ahead with? And this is important because and then there's some examples I would also give you. Whenever you choose a brand, a lot of companies today are first-time franchisors, right? India has a very big startup ecosystem I talked about. 25% of the startups in India, they choose franchising to grow. So some of them might not have a very big history of past performance, but definitely they would have some history of, maybe if it was a D2C brand, direct to consumer brand, I'm sure they would have some understanding of markets which they work in. Some companies are very, very strong in technology, so they understand where that data exists, what locations, what SKUs, what brand would do well. Right? So these are important. And some companies also have multi-unit franchises, which means a one partner would have more than one location running, which is also, I would say, a testimony for you to agree that the brand support, that trust is comparatively higher. You will not find many franchisees running multiple units for the same brand. That would only happen when the franchise partner has a lot of trust on the brand. So these are indications that you can, find when you speak to the companies. Apart from that, what you need to look at is also the people who are behind, maybe their commitment, the management of the company, leadership of the company, how committed they are to their franchisees. You need to understand also if the company has standard operating processes. A lot of startups, because there is, anybody can get into franchising. So a lot of companies find the easy way out. They copy paste the models, share it with the investor, and they want to get started with the business. But all the responsible companies in franchising, they are very much process oriented. They have laid down the systems processes, because in absence of these SOPs being laid down and the franchise partner being trained on these SOPs, it is very difficult to standardize, scale. And a lot of deviations come in the business, which makes it very difficult for a franchisee to sustain everyday business. And it becomes difficult to sustain that period of agreement. So that's very important. And the third is the margins and the return on the investment, right? So this is critical. And a lot of times I speak to business buyers. They say, if the business has great margins, I'm interested. If the business has great ROI, I would be interested. But this is very, very subjective. ROI is very proportionate to the life of the opportunity. If the life of the opportunity is big, your return on the investment is calculated on that horizon. And on the margin side also, always look at an apple to apple comparison. Even in the same industry, say food, not all companies would have same margins or, same cost structure. Similarly, in retail also, not all companies would have same margin structure or cost structure. It depends on the industry. It depends on the category. It also depends on the stage at which the business is. It also depends on the economies of scale the business has. All that is very, very subjective. So go very deep down to understand the ROI and the margins, and compare that with the immediate peers in that industry. And finally is, how you as a business buyer is able to hedge your risk in the investment. Franchising is very popular, taken by a lot of first-time business buyers and even seasoned business buyers, because they understand they get a brand, they get a system which is tried and tested. So you need to understand, your hedge, your risk, which the company is hedging, which could be, for example, stock. A lot of companies, the biggest risk, especially in a retail business, one of our friends wrote about investing in a fashion retail apparel brand. The biggest risk any business buyer or a franchisee has: what happens to the stock tomorrow if I want to exit the business? So most of the companies, they largely take a security deposit from you. They give even 100% correction. So largely there is no risk on the stock which investor would have. Right? So you need to understand how the company is de-risking you in a model where the company is only taking care of all the operations and you are just a passive investor. In these scenarios also, the company sometimes, when the company is new, they kind of de-risk the investor by some kind of a minimum guarantee, revenue share structure, so that they have some kind of security on the investment. So understand from the companies, again, like I said, this would be very different based on what stage the company is. So friend, this is what I had to share with you. I will also very quickly share my screen. And if you want to take a screen shot. Yeah. So this is what we advise. Let me put that again. So, if you want to take a screenshot, I talked about all these assessment tools: self-assessment, industry assessment, market assessment, competition and brand assessment. So if your overall score, these are 25 points. If your overall score is 20 or more than 20, then the opportunity you have ticked marked is excellent. If your score is 15 to 20, it is good. But if your overall score on these 5 assessment tools and 25 points is less than 15, it is not advisable for you to go ahead with that opportunity. right? So this is something very important. You tick mark. You can easily tick mark. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of analysis. But if you tick mark, it makes it easy for you to comprehend. And this is what we follow at Franchise India. What I said, we have a tried and tested methodology. All the last 26 years of our existence, we follow this four-stage process, which starts with the information stage, where we understand the profile of people, we understand the markets where they want to open, we understand the investment they want to bring in, we understand the operational fit, how much time in the operations you want to put in the business. Based on that information that we gather, our teams then start evaluating what opportunities would come based on these four fitments. So this is a primary fit, which is the SOMF fit that you see on the screen: strategic fit, operational fit, market fit, and financial fit. So we create these four filters. These are primary filters for us. Our team takes almost about a week to 10 days time to filter the opportunities which would fit in these four dynamics, and then bring you the details, followed by tri-party meetings, an outlet tour, or a center tour. And this is further followed by a negotiation stage, where our teams work with you to structure the entire deal, right? So when you like these opportunities, we go ahead. For reasons the opportunities presented to you does not go ahead, then our teams go backward. We again work on the opportunities, curate these options, and share it with you. And we assist and work with you till the time the agreement, the LOI, has been signed up. So from the time that you show your interest in selection of opportunities, understanding your profile, your market, to the time you sign up the deal, we are involved in the entire process of operations. So friend, this is what I wanted to bring in. I'll also request, if you're looking for more information, you can reach out to us. Our hotline number is 9717683838. This is the hotline number. You can WhatsApp. And also feedback at franchiseindia.in is the email ID. For any specific information on the brand, you can reach out to us. Before I close, I'll also request, we have a webinar which is happening at 12 o'clock. There's a company called Versace, BERCHE. This company is a footwear retail brand, and they're looking at franchise partners. They also have Vivek Oberoi, who's a brand ambassador. And we have the management of the company who's coming and presenting their business model to all our investors. If you allow me a minute, I can share with you a link of the webinar. It would not take more than a few seconds for you to register yourself. Just give me a moment. So I've done that. I've shared the link on the window. You can see that in the chat box. You can quickly copy paste that. Friends, if you're interested, do join us at 12 o'clock. The management of Versace is coming to present their business model. And this is something I recommend always, even while you have made up your mind or you're still exploring, always try to take as much as information, because more information, more education you have on the business opportunities that exist in the market, it makes you more intelligent to do your own due diligence. Thank you, friends, for being